is it. We've got the last, but far from the least. This is actually potentially the most interesting session because it's touching on a topic that is on everyone's minds and lips everywhere right now, which is big data. And one of the things we want to pull out of this session, I think, is getting an understanding of where we little data guys, if you will, sort of fit in the world of big data. Should we be anywhere near it? Do we actually have it? Should we even be talking about it? Should we be running from it? Can we partner with people who have bigger technology, better skills with it, and leverage it somehow on our behalf? Or perhaps some of these big data operators can actually leverage little data in some way to give them more precision, more understanding of what they're doing. So we're going to talk about all that, but I think you're also going to get three very fascinating stories about different companies that are doing things that will show you where things are headed, what's possible, but also some things that I think are immediately relevant to your business as well. So this is going to be an interesting little collection for you, but I think you're really going to enjoy it because these are great stories. I've asked each of the speakers to do just a very short presentation because I think you could benefit from some context around what they're going to be talking about, their businesses, and where they've positioned themselves. And we're going to kick off with Erik Matlick, who's president of the newly formed Madison Logic Data.
Thanks, Russell. So I like the comments about little data, and I'm going to just tell you a little story about how we got started with Madison Logic Data and what we, I guess, are calling big data right now. I had started a company called Madison Logic, which is a media company. We do sell both lead generations, full funnel solutions, lead generation, top of funnel, all the way through to display audience targeting. About 2 years ago, we were operating this network, and we started to dabble in using more and more intent data. Intent data is really behavioral data at a very granular level. And whether we were sending out an email or serving a banner ad, the metrics were 300 to 400% better, whether you were looking at either an open rate or a click-through rate, whatever metrics, performance metrics you looked at, they were just better when you used intent data. And we started to realize that the limiting factor for us as a media company or a publishing company, if you will, was just access to more data and scale, and that was what was limiting our growth. So we had this concept that we would start aggregating more and more data. At the time, just to give you some numbers, we were on our own network had about 20 to 30 million monthly interactions. That's what we were aggregating ourselves and using. Very small. And so we had this concept, let's go out and build a data co-op, kind of like what the catalogers did in the 70s and 80s and what FICO score did for the financial industry. So we started this internally, and we started talking to more publishers. We quickly got our data pool up to about 100 million interactions, and then some of the larger publishers, the guys like Forbes or New York Times or whoever, they would say, hey, look, we love this concept of joining a data co-op and pooling the data so that we all have more intelligence on our users, but aren't you competing with us in your media business? You're also selling advertising. So we took that as a cue to say, hey, you know what, we really need to split this thing off, start a new company. I don't know if you saw, but last week we announced that Madison Logic now is a standalone company. I hired a CEO, replaced myself, which I guess I'm good at. And now I moved over. I'm the CEO of Madison Logic Data. It's a separate company, different cap table, and that's what we do. I'm going to try to, there we go. What Madison Logic Data is, it's a data co-op business. We don't compete with our media partners. It's a very large co-op right now. It's the largest aggregator of B2B data on the intent and demographic side of things. And we do three things: aggregate, organize, and activate. Aggregate, simply, we are going out to all of the B2B publishers. We have about 1,000 publishers right now that are contributing, that have our tags up. That's the aggregate piece. We're breaking down the walls of these small, as you said, little data, getting them all into one place so that it's usable and so that everyone has scale and knows more about their own users. We organize it. That's the more complex piece. I'll get into that in a second. But that's making it usable. So that's looking at the data and adding topics to it, adding demographic data to it, offline data to it, so that it actually can be used and consumed. And activate is lighting it up so that you actually can do something with it. Here. Just a couple numbers real quick. You have, right now we're at about 1.2 billion monthly interactions. Some of you guys might say, whoa, that's way too big for B2B. Well, there's two parts here. There's intent data, which is literally what people are consuming online. That's probably about 200 million interactions a month. The bigger number, 1.2 million, is 2 billion, is coming from IP addresses. We're now breaking down IP addresses and bringing in all kinds of demographic data to the marketplace. About 170 million unique users. We're profiling almost 2 million companies right now, so we know we're basically monitoring what 2 million companies are doing online and trying to figure out what kind of trends, what they're consuming online, what they're doing online. We've created about 2,300 targetable segments, and I'll show you what that is in a second, but we light those up with our strategic alliance with Oracle. There's 1,900 topics that we monitor on a daily basis online and what people are consuming, and about 1,000 publishers that are part of this. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to point this. Maybe yeah, just hit that for me. Thanks. This is how we do it. We built a tag. It's called content consumption monitoring. That's what that's the term that we coined. But we put the tag on our co-op partner sites, the publishers' websites, and those publishers range from very small niche publishers to UBM, Quinn Street, SourceForge, to even larger publishers like Forbes and Business Insider and many others. And what that tag does is it looks for what kind of content the users are consuming. We built a taxonomy of 1,900 very granular B2B topics: cloud storage, storage virtualization, some niche topics inside of security. Security alone has 27 topics, just try to give you an idea of how granular we get. And then when we see a user consuming or reading an article, there's many different touch points. And again, getting back to what is big data isn't just one source. We look at almost 10 sources at this point. So there could be a white paper download, it could be a software download, it could be an article read, it could be a search, it could be attending a conference. We actually have conferences that are now part of the co-op that are providing us conference data. And so we look at those different touch points, and then we look at what kind of topics they're consuming, both at an individual level as well as up top at the company level, so we can build trends at what's going on at these companies. And we monitor those, and that's how we do the content consumption monitoring. If you want to hit the next slide. And sort of running out of time here, but so those are the touch points at the bottom. The 1,900 topics are in the middle. That's what we call intent data. We also look at, as I said, demographic data. And then what we do is we make it actionable. We have 3 different ways that marketers or publishers can use this data. We light it up in the middle of display licensing. That's the Oracle relationship. Marketers and trading desks can get access to this data through Blue Kai, the Oracle cloud. Or we can light it up for you inside of your data management platform. So if you're a publisher and you're sitting on Crux is one of the partners that we work with, we can make this data available to your media team or your trading desk or your data science people in Crux or a number of other areas to use. That's for display advertising. The other big use cases are what we call our fire hose, which is really being used for lead scoring. So there's a number of publishers now. Everyone knows what TechTarget's doing, probably with IT Deal Alert, but there's a lot of publishers out there that are building the next generation of lead gen, which is really more lead scoring, figuring out which leads are the hottest or which companies are in market, and they use this data feed that we license to them to create those products. Then you also have pure play analytics companies out there that are licensing this as well to do things with this feed. And I think probably Craig will talk a little bit about that too. You have a lot of relationships there. And then the last piece is analytics data in motion, really using that data for everything from content recommendation to email marketing. So those are my use cases. I'm going to skip you don't need these last 3 slides. I'll probably use up all my time, so I'm going to pass the mic on.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see what happens.
Yep. Next up, we've got Jonathan Fentzke from OmniEarth, who I think we can fairly say is taking a big picture view of things.
Yes, and so I'm going to take a little bit of a different twist on the big data piece for you guys. So OmniEarth's a startup, and what we're really focused on is providing subscription-based solutions as a service, data and analytics for a wide variety of customers, but with a little bit of a different angle than my colleagues here on the panel. We're really focused on geospatial, and so 80% of data or more has a location associated with it or is geospatial in nature. And what that allows us to do is understand how things are changing. And so we sell geospatial data to people that know what to do with it, and we sell insights and analytics to those that don't. And we do that by combining information from various sources, fusing it together. So in this sort of axis of data under overload, you tend to have human-generated data that's made by people or by databases that lives on the internet or in corporate archives. That's very high volume, but it's sort of specialized in nature and kind of lives in this archive. And then you have sort of higher frequency, lower volume, the small data players that are niche applications for specific target customers or verticals. And what we attempt to do is to fuse those kinds of data together and understand what's changing. How do we inform our customers about the opportunities that exist between structured and unstructured data that has a geospatial context? And so, if this clicker works at some point, again, thinking about data at scale. So, one of the ways that we're generating content is through satellite data. And you say, so what's the value proposition of satellites and how is it relevant to me? Well, basically what we're able to do is to cover every 2 by 2 meter pixel of the digital world, if you will, everywhere, every day. And the constellation that we're going to be flying is lasting for more than 10 years, which means that I can basically put a sensor on every pixel of the world and collect data every day, everywhere for 10 years for 0.0003 cents a sensor. And what that allows us to do is understand how things are changing on the surface of the Earth. $84 trillion global economy spread over approximately 60% of the globe, and it has a physically verifiable footprint. These are cars, railroads, utilities, parking lots, homes, things like that. And we look at, like, for instance, volumetric change in a city. This informs like lead gen or sales opportunities for places that are slowing or growing. And we do a lot of this work through the traditional big data analytics tool sets, and we provide custom dashboards and interactive capabilities to customers, again, on a subscription basis. So let's see what happens again. Here we go, yes. And the idea behind what we're doing is there was a previous panelist that had talked about global data sets. I wish I get my hands on global data sets. Well, that's our specialty, fusing, aggregating global data sets such that you can take local insights and scale them globally, or take global trends and reduce them to various areas. And we'll probably talk about during the panel, you know, we're doing stuff with drought in California, but that same information can be used for targeted sales of lawn care services in Florida, things like that. So I'm just going to finish up here with the idea that my company does have a lot of scientists and engineers and software people, but we're not for experts by experts. We're really trying to build specific applications for business users that are easy to understand. There's a lot of insight there. And we work with customer partners to understand the value of their data, because not all bits are created equal for our customers. And so when I hear about these marketplaces and data aggregation from a number of different sources, I get really excited, because I can think about ways to put that in a geospatial context and model it and provide value for end customers. And so all I want to get at is, to me, collaboration is key. And I do believe that big data is a big deal, and look forward to talking with the panelists here about their applications and also hearing from the audience so that I can generate new products in 15 and 16 that will drive value for all of us. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. And of course, old DataContent friend Craig Harris with HG Data is going to tell us what he's been up to.
Hi, guys. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, so for starters, HG Data is it's about a 45-person team based out of Santa Barbara with offices in Sunnyvale, about 4 years old. And I'm gonna steal a line from Jonathan with attribution here. I really liked what you said when you said you sell data to people that know what to do with it. We spent a couple years trying to sell data to people that didn't know what to do with it, and you know what I could have learned from Jonathan. So in any event, we're sort of a unique publisher. We don't normally call ourselves a publisher, but once a year in the fall we call ourselves a publisher. And you know, really what we've done is we've developed a supervised machine learning platform. And what I mean by that is we've got a handful of really smart human beings, and they train our algorithms, sort of natural language rules that enable us to ingest massive amounts of unstructured or semi-structured content that we bring in, that we license or purchase or scrape. And we've got billions and billions of different what we call documents. These could be things such as press releases. We've got billions of job postings going several years back, and social information. And we're able to go and train our algorithms to go and find little teeny factoids and morsels of information. And currently the first sort of manifestation of the first problem that we're solving is trying to go into this corpus of data with our platform to answer some very specific questions, and that is which companies are using which technology products at which locations. And let's see here. I think we can advance the slide. Oops, there we go. So in this first vertical, we're tracking installed technologies worldwide. Before I go too deep into that, though, let me just back up a second and just tell you more of sort of the bigger vision. Since the theme is big data, I'll share with you a pretty big, ambitious, lofty vision that we have, and really what we endeavor to do is to build the B2B graph engine of business relationships. And I guess one way to think about this is if Reachable, Laurent is here, if Reachable in LinkedIn are building out a graph of the connections between people in business, HG Data is building out the graph and the connections between the underlying businesses themselves. And really, we endeavor to track the entire global B2B supply chain, from the mining of silicon from the earth all the way to the handheld device. If you think about all the thousands of components and products and companies and distributors that go from earth to your handheld device, that's really what we endeavor to do, is to map all of those relationships, every major B2B category, all the major vendors, all their products, who are all the customers, and who are all the other players in the broader ecosystem, the distributors and the resellers and the partners and alliances, etc. However, it's a lofty goal. We're not one of those lucky companies that got to raise a $30 million round of A-round financing without a product to have an expensive science experiment. We actually need to sell product and solve problems along the way. So we're tackling this vision vertical by vertical, and starting with the enterprise technology vertical. Currently we're tracking close to 2,000 vendors. Over 5,000 different products that are offered by those vendors. And, for example, I can't really see the screen here, but you can see some statistics there, like an IBM, where we're tracking over 100 products at probably at this point close to 200,000 customer locations. It's very granular. We don't just tell people, which companies are using Cisco. We go all the way down to makes and models, who's using Cisco 2600 routers or switches. So it's very, very detailed and granular information. Another screenshot here. This would just be, part of a profile where we've mapped out the Oracle deployments, the Oracle stack. For, I think in this case, this comes from our Comcast profile. And in this example, we can identify 20 or 30 different Oracle products that are being used across the Comcast enterprise. And we're able to identify how deeply diffused and deployed these various Comcast products are within that organization. And again, all of this information stems from either publicly available information, the current web, or information that at some point in the past was public, or the archived web as we consider it. And it goes to show the power of big data with Hadoop and being able to do parallel processing and to be able to crunch just dozens and dozens of terabytes of data and to do it lightning fast. It's really powerful to see what you can come up with when you distill it down and present it in a consumable way. Back to the Comcast example. This is a heat map of the 600 or 700 different Comcast locations where we've mapped the specific IT products that are being used by Comcast and which locations are using the products. Those bigger circles represent what we call our intensity score. So the bigger the circle, the more technology products that are being used at that location. So in doing this heat map, we can essentially map out the IT centers for Comcast. And this is just one profile. We're doing this for millions of companies worldwide. We're now doing this internationally. Another powerful thing you can do, the same map. Whoops. There we go. This is a slide that shows where we're looking at just 3 vendors within Comcast. We're looking at Salesforce versus Oracle versus SAP. So by taking that same information and now looking just at 3 vendors that all compete for share of wallet within Comcast, it can give you a snapshot today of what the current share of wallet looks like between those 3 vendors. And if you, I don't have this animated, but if you animate this over, say, a 5-year period, you can show the relative slopes and which vendors are going in there and gaining share of wallet, which vendors are losing share of wallet. And it starts to tell a pretty powerful story that even the biggest enterprises can't, with their own information, distill and identify their share of wallet relative to their competitors. And the last slide that I'll show, if there we go. This is a longitudinal analysis of the 5 largest server vendors over time, and this is where we mapped each vendor's relative share of wallet in the server category over, I think, 6 or 7 years. And it's really interesting. I mean, we didn't know if this was accurate or inaccurate, and so thanks to the IDC, we actually read their reports on server market share and used that to as one of the ways that we validated the accuracy of the data. And to me, the most exciting part, again, is that this all stems from just billions and billions of publicly available documents that, because of big data tools, we now have the ability to process. And in our customers, currently, they use our database. It's a subscription product. We don't have a front end. You can't log in. It's not a seat-based product yet. And typically we sell to Fortune 500 companies, and they'll ingest our data feed. They get it plugged in or integrated into their CRM systems, into their marketing funnel, marketing automation systems, their BI tools, in some cases their ERP systems. So it's a really sticky layer of data inside these enterprise systems of record. And that's, and I think one important theme, if I don't get to it during the panel discussions, is that, our model is that we don't sell the data, we rent the data. And so long as our customers are continuing to renew on an annual basis, they get to maintain the data inside of their systems and they continue to get updates. The moment that a customer does not renew a subscription, they have to strip all the information out of their CRM and marketing automation. And that serves to make it really sticky because our customers tend to build on top of this. And I'll close with the fact that while we've started in enterprise technology, the underlying platform and machinery that we've developed, it's vertical agnostic, and so we're now doing market validation and starting to look at other applications and other verticals, from heavy machinery and equipment to healthcare to mining and energy and agriculture. So we're very excited to go and see if we can find some exciting problems to solve in other verticals. So that's it.
Thank you. So we got 3 very different types of big data, very different applications. And maybe the place to start is at the beginning and just say what exactly is big data. I think I shared with you, and I wish I had saved it, this article about a newspaper publisher who was going to make this big move into big data, and he said, you got to get the tools in place, and because it was going to be a huge undertaking because he had over 40,000 articles in his archive. And the whole concept has just gotten people so excited, so overwhelmed. And one of the things that would be helpful for me, because I actually don't know the answer to it, is how much of big data is the collection and how much of it is the analysis? I mean, I imagine there's a lot of people out there grabbing vast quantities of stuff, but ultimately you got to have a use for it. Is it just enough? Because I think also the thing we see is that we're all natural data hoarders. The notion that you can go out and grab like everything on the internet just sounds innately appealing to everyone in this room. But the next step is application. And do you gather it first and then go looking for use cases because it's so inexpensive these days? Is that an efficient way to look at it? Or you still do it the more traditional way and say, I'm trying to solve a particular problem, now I'll go out and get the data?
I mean, I think Craig and I talked a little bit about this. I think we're clearly in a phase still right now where there's literally a handful of companies, and I don't know if it's 15 or 30 at this point, that actually can utilize big data in its raw format. And I'm talking Amazon, American Express, IBM, you have a few customers I know that
Yeah.
we would name as well. And we made the same mistake too, by the way. We tried to come out with a data product a year ago, and we thought everybody was ready because everyone's talking about big data, and you would go to them and they would look at it and go, "This is awesome. What do I do with it?" You know. And then we came to this realization that we actually have to better productize it. We have to make it actionable, and then they can use it. And so, one last point is, and my CTO said this to me the other day. Most companies that have big data solutions in place today, whether it's Hadoop and they have a data scientist, whatever they're doing, they're at the phase right now where they're not actually even doing any analysis. They're literally just counting. It's just literally a report that just has a count on it. That's all they're doing at this point.
What, because it looks cool, or is that?
Well, that's where it starts. It starts with counting, and then you go, okay, this is how many users are doing X.
Right.
But they're not actually doing anything quantitative with it that's, predictive or, analytical.
Yeah, in science, when you don't know what it is, you just make a chart of it, or a graph, or a bar chart, and then you try to figure out what the trend means, and then try to get to some insight. So it starts with aggregation and counting, and then moving into it. I think, to me, big data is, if you need partners and third-party tools, you can't just do it on your desktop. It's becoming big data. Now companies like Amazon and others are making it easier to access private or public clouds and large-scale processing. But nevertheless, I mean, in our case at OmniEarth, we'll be generating between 20 and 60 petabytes of data a year from the constellation. That's big data, right? That's 8,000 years of your songs playing continuously. That's 30,000 people, their collective brain power for an entire lifetime, or maybe just the brain power of the people that are here at this conference. So that is above average. But it is a challenge, and for us, just in terms of tools for big data or what big data is, we're agnostic, right? So these gentlemen are doing great stuff and thinking about servers and aggregation, how to push data between platforms, making the graphs. I think about it like Facebook uses graph theory, right? Palantir uses network theory. For us, we're platform agnostic to the tools to say what's the easiest way to solve the problem. And sometimes it's big data tools because you don't have a choice, and sometimes it's use a big data tool to derive a model, and then that model is very compact, and you can use then small data and other easy tools for your customers that don't require massive servers and massive computational power. I don't know if you guys are seeing similar trends.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say with, what is big data? Actually, if you Google the phrase, what is big data, there's going to be a series, the first page of results will have a series of thought leaders, and they're all telling the same thing, which is big data. It's actually a pretty silly term. No one actually understands what it means, and it's, it's going to go away, at some point. My definition of big data is probably something along the lines of when you have enough data and you're trying to process that information, it will take you too long to do it on one server. You actually need to take the processing job, and you need to do parallel processing. This, if you've heard the word Hadoop, it basically means you're taking something that would take really, really long time on one machine, and you can split it up into 5 or 10 or 50 or 100, a cluster of machines, and do parallel processing. To me, that is the definition of big data, for lack of a better one that I found. To your question, is big data about collecting versus analyzing? I think big data is, if you're collecting it and you're storing it, then yes, it's big data. I mean, if you have to store petabytes of information in the cloud, if your Amazon bill for storage is more than a few $1,000s a month, then arguably it's big data. But everyone has the power of Google at their fingertips, and it's free. So ostensibly, you all have 3% of the world's digital information at your fingertips via Google. But it doesn't mean that you're a big data searcher. It's once you start asking questions and solving problems with it.
Right. And this mere collection and being able to hand someone that big data dump, I think the issues there, even though it's called big data and it's all exciting and sexy right now, it's the same issue with all forms of data publishing. You have to make it useful to someone. You have to do something to clean it up and add value to it. It's not just, there's nothing here. This is not a raw data play.
Well, I would just say that in general, you have to take a utility model with data, which is you have to make it easily available, accessible, and cleaned up in a way that people can actually use it, because you can have all the data in the world, but if you don't have a means to access it or understand it, it doesn't mean anything. And that's part of the power of search and these database queries and aggregation, allowing people to have that utility model where you can plug in and then actually do something useful.
And is this something you should try at home, or is this something best left to people who really know what they're doing? Because it's an interesting divide, I think, at least I think I'm seeing, is that all of you can work with people who have data sets of their own but may not be skilled in collecting something at this scale and analyzing and refining it. And is that the way you think things may play out, where there'll be the people who've got the specialized capabilities and servers and skills and expertise, and then the people who can want subsets of it to work with it on a more refined basis?
We could probably both answer that with a similar answer.
I think, well, the interesting thing is both of us have a sort of a raw product, which is structured data, but more of a Firehose feed, where we'd like to license it to the companies that do have the data science team, and they can actually build their own products around it. And it would be great if the world was ready. Unfortunately, the world's not ready for that. There are certain companies that are ready for it, and they're doing great and interesting things with it. I think we're finding more and more that you need to productize these products for the masses. Our best customer, and I like to say this, is if you're looking to, if you're a publisher and you have your one small silo of data, use the word little data, that's very valuable data. There's no doubt that it's not valuable. But you need someone to come along and structure that. It doesn't make sense. If you're a publisher with your silo of data and you're just looking to put it up somewhere and someone to send you a royalty check for $1,500 or $5,000, that's not strategic to us. I mean, that's not even the business that we're in. If you're looking to get 10,000% more data on your own users so that you can actually build a product and you're willing to pay for that, then that's strategic. That means you're building something. Our best customer is the customer that we walk into. They've already installed Hadoop. They've already hired a data science team. They all get in place. They're there for 6 months, and then they go to their CEO and they go, "This is really cool, but where's the data?" That's when we come in, and that's our best customer.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that a little bit differently. From the lens of a publisher, from a data publisher. So I think many of the publishers in this room and at the conference have very, very unique data sets, whether it's big data, small data. The point is, if you have what I call columns and rows that are very unique and differentiated, I think one of the mistakes, or I want to warn people that to try to sell raw columns and rows to end users, the consumers of the information, it's very, very challenging. In my experience, we went to people and said, gee, how would you like to know the customers that are using your competitors' products? And I'm yet to find a technology company that didn't raise their hand and said, well, of course I want to know who my competitors are selling to. The moment I send them a flat file with millions and millions of columns and rows, they don't know what to do with it. So whether as a publisher, if you have those columns and rows that are unique and differentiated, if you know it has value, and if you're talking to people who agree that it has value, it's a very exciting time to be that publisher, because there's now ecosystems and marketplaces where you don't actually have to build a front end. You don't have to start selling to end users. Since you might not say it yourself, Madison Logic is a great example. These guys, both Madison Logic Media and Madison Logic Data, a great example of the type of company where you can go and distribute your data through these guys, and they're actually solving problems for the end user with it. Other examples would be Dun & Bradstreet, the D&B Data Exchange, a great example where you can actually, your product can be columns and rows, and Dun & Bradstreet can integrate that information to their very, very large footprint of customers globally. There's other examples, the co-op databases, whether it's Omnichannel or Sapphire, or even DonorBase if you're in the nonprofit sector. There's third-party ecosystems such as the Salesforce SFDC exchange, the Marketo exchange. There are ways to go and actually integrate your data into ecosystems and marketplaces, so that you don't have to put a front end on it and go start selling a subscription-based product, because it's a lot of work, it's expensive, and you have to be able to solve a real problem integrated into workflow, as cliche as that is.
No, and this is where our company sits too, with a front end, with an analytics dashboard and platform, where you have to create at some level a marketplace or a partnership to generate the data. Think about it like a Netflix model, right? They generate their own content, gives them pricing power in the market, but they also sell other people's content as well and distribute it through a platform. And so for us in our initial partnerships and other folks, I mean, whether it's IHS or Thomson or CoreLogic or others, that if we're integrating their data anyway into our subscription-based solutions, yeah, you can go to our web store, yeah, you can download a data subscription and get in front of end users. It is difficult when the small data and the big data, what's valuable. It's a bit like any commodities or derivatives market where you have a little piece over here and how is it related and how do I price it, and not all bits are created equal. And that's where working with a good sales force and getting in front of end customers hopefully gives you feedback through your existing partnerships or your marketplace so that you can actually figure out what the value of your data is, because many times you don't know. This was brought up in the previous panel with Edmunds, like what was the value to API developers and others. We didn't actually know we put it out there. And so that can be difficult to generate the revenue share models or other things in the marketplace. But I think it's really important that don't hoard your data, get it out there.
Yeah. And I think this notion of pooling data just to get that sort of network effect is brilliant. But I'm also wondering if it's sort of, is it bi-directional? Would you, Craig, for example, license some sliver of your data back to someone who has a smaller data set so they could enhance it?
Yeah, we do, and we do things like that. I think it's a big marketplace out there, and I think it's ambitious to think that you can serve the whole market. I think part of it too is if you think of the data that you have as a publisher, and if you think about the various applications, the various problems that you can solve with your data, it's not just for sales, it's not just for marketing. There could be a really interesting application for your data selling into, to Wall Street, who's doing fundamental research in your sector. It could be using the data to help create, B2B panelists that if a company is looking for, expert panelists in a very, very unique category that you're publishing content in. So there's 5, 10, 20 different ways you can use the data. So to think that as a publisher you can serve all those constituencies, I think is overly ambitious. And so yes, I think you have to be cautious and thoughtful about not. There will be named companies and that you're probably not going to want to resell or distribute your data to, because that could create channel conflict down the road. But most folks out there probably can serve your data up in ways that you haven't even contemplated.
Yeah. And Erik, you've got a real end-to-end solution, so it's very, very highly productized. And I know you're only a week old, but I mean, could there be opportunities to sell perhaps an intent data to someone who has a prospecting database so that they can make their own data?
Absolutely, we're doing that. So yeah, we are a week old, but we were inside of Madison.
Busy week.
For a while. Yeah, we did a lot in a week. No, we've been doing this for over a year now, but we spun out a week ago. But yeah, no, that actually is our business model. Is really more about, we have productized it, but our real end goal is to empower others, right, including publishers. Publishers are our core co-op members, and then I think as you were saying, as a publisher, it's challenging out there today. I mean, for every business that you're in, and you're in a lot of businesses these days, there's all of the vendors you have to deal with, and there's lots of little pieces. And now the marketers are saying you need this tool and you need that tool, and it needs to be audited, and you need to, and so it's just endless the amount of things you need to do as a publisher, I think. And that's where I think the value of having strong partners like us that say, okay, this part of your business, which is this data that's coming off of your site that you're actually not doing with, you need more of it, because everything you do runs better when you have more fuel. And B, we can take it and we can actually monetize it, because we are doing things. We're integrated into Marketo, we're integrated into a local, we're integrated into the Blue Kai Oracle Exchange. We're going to monetize your data in so many different ways that you will make a lot of money, but you'll have access to a lot of data.
Yeah, and just if I could talk about for a minute the way we think about that, for instance, again, we're in a geospatial context, but, we ingest Twitter feeds and understand things like the happiness index, right? And so if you're a company or you're a large multinational with installations in various places and you're trying to understand, are my customers happy, are they not? What is social media telling me about their preference? Having that as a dashboard or a piece of your website, right, and click through, and there's a bunch of things you can do there that don't immediately seem like it's relevant, but we see a lot of broad uptake, and especially in both directions. So as an example, with agriculture and things, we do agricultural monitoring and health and all that, but it turns out that that's relevant to commodities exchange, and then you get into business intelligence, and then people are asking, well, who's doing what where? And then that becomes, again, a click-through, an opportunity for lead gen for a bunch of other products that I don't know anything about, and I probably never will, and that's why I need partners. We look for people that have expertise in these either back-end data sources or applications, and then we all make money.
And you've mentioned several times constellation. I think you mean by that you're actually orbiting your own satellites.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah. So right now we're taking data from publicly available and proprietary sources in space, but by 2018 we'll have a constellation of Earth imaging satellites that will be able to image everywhere, every day. And this is not just taking pretty pictures of the Earth, it's generating information about how the surface actually changes, crop health, volumetric change, all kinds of atmospheric things. And what that allows us to do is to sell, again, pretty pictures or data streams to like large multinational corporations who take this for business intelligence, for high consequence area monitoring, for drought and monitoring of areas. And then we take a derived product, classification, feature extraction. We build models from that using a number of tools to do Bayesian networks, network theory, all kinds of other fun stuff, and then have these dashboards so that people that aren't data scientists can actually understand and ask and answer big questions, like trying to build the equivalent of like an IBM Watson for geospatial or unstructured data. That's our end goal.
And then, everything geospatial is inherently cool, but I think
I like to think so.
What really set the light bulb off for me when we were talking was that there is a way to take some of that visual imagery and connect it to a structured data record. And you have some use cases I just thought were fascinating.
Oh, yeah. So I think a really good one is California obviously has a drought problem right now. And so what we do is we take flown imagery and classify, the pool, roof, shrub, tree, and we connect that with water use data and also the cadastral, the tax data and parcel information to understand what users like you should be using in water. This has been used effectively in electricity and social pressure, and we give a dashboard to municipal water districts and then also implement this predictive analytics on social pressure because the mandate is 20% reduction by 2020. Well, something like 30% of California doesn't have water meters, so how the heck do you figure that out? Well, you have to take some geospatial context and then provide a derived product which makes it more efficient, reduces the water use, don't have to have as many water cops on the beat. But it has all kinds of other applications because now you get into users like you, which is a huge thing about intent and other applications. It turns out very wealthy people use a lot of water and they don't care because they have the money to pay for it, but if they knew that other wealthy people also were doing better because they use low flow or other things, it changes the way they think. And also they have buying habits, they have certain localities, and it changes over time. So these are ways that we think about the future of how to take geospatial context and apply it to new problems.
Interesting.
You're like,
Oh, sorry.
go as long as you want.
Well, I'm going to stop hogging the floor then, because I could go on all day. But very interesting things. And I'm making a separation here. I'm just saying that it seems to me there's an emerging bunch of companies that are able and should be doing the heavy lifting in some of this massive data processing and analysis, and that there's a way for companies that don't have those resources or have much smaller, more defined data sets to tap into it, whether they're going to pool their data or perhaps pull down some of that data to enhance their own. It could be for sales leads. It could be to enhance their own database.
Yeah.
That strikes me as a natural, smart kind of division out there. I don't know if it's right or that's the way things are going to play out. But with planting that seed, I'd love to see if anyone has any questions. And then this notion that you can hook visual space data to actual data records and then draw conclusions from it is just mind-boggling to me.